Been properly seconded. Any questions? All in favor by the sign of aye. Opposers, nay. Motion carries. Madam Clerk, let's read Resolution 7A, please.
A resolution amending resolution number 29963 to add the law firm of Bass, Berry and Sims and authorize the office of city attorney to engage said law firm for legal services in corporate, transactional, intellectual property and administrative matters for the period of July 1, 2019 through June 30, 2020.
Seeing no questions, I'll now close that portion of our agenda session. There is no departmental report. So now, at this time, I will turn the chair over to Councilman Mitchell for Public Works and Transportation.
We have approval of the minutes? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Looks like we're starting with transportation today. Mr. Bailey, there you are. Come on down. How are you today?
I'm good, Mr. Councilman. Thank you.
Good. Okay, we're going to start with, it looks like we've already read, it's an ordinance on final reading. Does anybody have any needs, questions about that? Or can we just move on from there? Okay, we'll move on to resolutions then. 7C, please.
Resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Transportation to renew the services agreement between the City of Chattanooga and Census America, Inc. for traffic infraction detection and enforcement program for 1 year from March 25, 2019 until March 25, 2020 as described in the attached services agreement or until such new contract is approved.
And I believe, Mr. Bailey, you already told us where there's still cameras in place.
I did send that information to you. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
I don't see any questions, so I guess we can move on to next week agenda where we have a resolution. 7D, please.
A resolution authorizing approval of change order number 1 final for Kimley Horn and Associates relative to contract number T17008-101 for professional services associated with transit signal prioritization and accessibility for an increased amount of $670,570 for revised contract amount not to exceed $1,420,000.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. I do see several districts listed here, so Blythe, that's a pretty big increase amount. If you care to give us an overview on that?
Certainly, and we've not obligated ourselves. We haven't started the work yet. So this is due to, actually, I want to credit our staff for a lot of hard work. There were 2 significant changes that were required of us after we got a federal grant to implement. This is for transit signal priority. It's a signal upgrade project for the traffic signals along the number 4 route, which goes from downtown down MLK, Bailey, Brainerd Road, Lead Highway to Hamilton Place Mall, which just explains the number of districts. And the original grant was to upgrade the signals that would give priority to buses, which increases the efficiency of the transit system along that route, which is the highest frequency route and the highest used route. Since we won the grant, we were required to upgrade for 2 major elements. One is what's called DSRC, which is additional technology that can help communicate with cars, and the other is ADA upgrades, which can mean lots of things, but most commonly is new concrete at the intersections. And those things were not planned for in the original grant, and our staff worked very hard with TDOT, who had decreed the requirements, and we were able to get a lot of the funding for those portions of the requirement included in the grant. This additional change order, which is, I believe, new funding required $134,000. That's the limited. That's what's needed of the city in addition to our original match. So, to summarize, we went from a $2.5 million grant to upgrade signals to a project that's about $8 million, much of which will be funded by the grant, and much of those matches will be funded by TDOT. This is the portion that is for the increased scope on the local route part of this project for the design consultant.
Okay, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
So when you say Route 4, I'm familiar with the Route 4 that goes out to Hamilton Place, but some of the buses go on I-75, I believe is part of that route, or 24 to 75 on that route. Is this the same route? Is this the same number 4 route we're talking about? I don't see Lisa here. I was scanning the room for her.
There's a state transit conference this week. I believe there's number 4 routes.
Two number 4
One
routes.
is an express route, which
Okay.
gets off the surface roads onto the highway.
Okay.
But the majority of the number 4 routes go up and down MLK Bailey, Brenner Redley
So
Highway.
if this works, we should keep paces with our CARTA buses and we're going to get through better.
Yes.
Ah, that's what I like to hear. Okay.
You
Thank you,
okay?
Chairman. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any more questions of Mr. Bailey? Well, I have one. You open your paving contract?
No, sir. We are getting very, very close.
All right, I'm going to ask the council that we begin now individually or as a group, based on the great report we received in the newspaper this morning of the survey and everybody's great satisfaction in our road conditions. I'm going to ask us to begin working with the mayor's office right now to try to, once and for all, seeing how some of us have one more crack at this in next year's budget, we get some real money in a budget for paving, real money. I know I've suggested before an enterprise fund, but I can't seem to get any traction up here for that. But I'm going to still ask the council that we really begin focusing in on that part of the budget right now. And with that, I'm just asking for your help and support. I got a question for you though, Mr. Bailey. What can you do to change your process so that we don't lose 4 months of beautiful paving weather again next year, starting July 1?
I think what you just said is what I've acknowledged with my staff. We've done a very good job the last 2 years of having a contract ready for you to sign. I think last year was September. We missed that goal this year. But we do have a process in place that is supposed to do that very thing. So I'll do a better job of making sure we meet it.
Okay. Oh, Councilman Ledford, I'm sorry. I'm going to say that's good enough for me. I take you at your word. Councilman Ledford.
Chairman, I just want to applaud you for bringing that up and bringing it up early. We're looking through the summary. I thought it was very interesting when I read under District.
Hey, excuse me. Punch your, I know. Now punch your light again. Okay, go.
Thank you, sir. I want to applaud you, in case you didn't hear that, for bringing this subject up. As you know, we've been.
You can say that as many times as you like.
I want to applaud you for, because when you're looking at the district summaries, District 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, they all read the same. On the first line, responded street paving was the highest priority. And if I don't know a more unified front on something that we need to be focusing on in the next budget. So, Chairman, I'll say it again, I applaud you for taking the lead on that and opening up that can of worms right now. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Anderson. I can get you, there you go.
I guess I need to push my button now. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I applaud you for bringing up this at this time as well. Blythe, I guess it was year before last, somewhere in there, we had an audit from our city auditor's department that addressed many of the issues and basically focused on, I guess, creating a plan whereby we could touch every road in a cycle. Have we made any progress with coming up with any kind of plan in that regard? And I think one of the things that would help in a budget item would be having a plan to decide how we need to address this issue.
Two things. You all approved in the budget a transportation asset management plan fund source that we intend to use with a consultant. We had a pre-bid, say called research meeting with an expert a national expert over paving just last week. Our staff is working to put that RFQ together and advertise it so that we get that consultant on board before the end of the year. And then our goal is to have a new framework that starts to answer that question in place as soon as possible, with the hope that it can inform the budget for next year.
Okay, so we do expect that we would have that plan in place for this coming
The
budget?
full deliverable likely won't be ready this fiscal year, but I think that we can tier our deliverable so that we have something that's useful to us for the
Something
upcoming
concrete,
budget.
a little more
Yes,
concrete?
sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I was hoping to hear from you, Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not going to applaud you, I'm going to second you, and a third and a fourth and everything else for all the years we've been up here trying to get this done. Mr. Chair, being that this is your committee, I would love to make the request that a date be set to have a Public Works and Transportation Committee meeting, and the entire intent of that meeting is discuss exactly what you just recommended. We've been having these conversations for years up here, and I will give Blythe and his team a significant amount of credit in that it used to take over a year to get a road paved after a budget was passed, and they've done a tremendous job of shortening that. It's not short enough for those of us that need to see something happen sooner than later to show our constituents that we do care, but they've done a tremendous amount to get it as short as they have to this point. So I know it's a lot of work, but I would like to see an actual meeting be held to have this discussion so that we're not saying, hey, Blythe would really like you to do this. What's it going to take next year? So that would be my request, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for bringing that back up.
You got it. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Blythe, if I may ask one question of Blythe.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Blythe, the program that you were just referring to, or the project with Councilman Henderson, does that include our PCI update?
Yes.
Okay, that's the same, one and the same?
It's not one and the same. It's a component of what has
Okay.
been funded.
Have we selected a vendor
No, sir.
or
We're-
out to bid yet for our PCI?
We are developing that RFQ right now.
Okay, when do you think that's going out?
We are planning to have a consultant on board by the end of the year.
By the end of the year?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good, thank you. I had several people asking me back home. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councilperson Burrs.
Thank you. You know, the BFO process is starting now for this budget, which once again, we have to vote on and have these same questions. So Blythe, are you saying that it'll be 2 years before we can look at a plan in the budget
I'm saying.
cycle?
I'm saying that we're beholden to whatever the consultant's schedule is. I think it's unlikely that we would have a fully finished plan before the
So why
beginning
wouldn't
of
we
next
just get a
fiscal year.
different
But
consultant?
what I'm saying is, I think that we can deliver a component of that plan that is useful to us for the upcoming fiscal year. That's what
Yeah,
I'm saying.
okay, so what I'm saying here is when we have budget hearings, the council people that are responsible for each committee are asked, or ask, as Councilman Mitchell just did, what is the plan? What is the plan? Because budgeting for outcomes has got to be based on what outcomes you want. And so if we don't have a plan to know what outcomes we want, then what do we budget for? And that's a rhetorical statement. So when we start again in May, it would seem to me that we would be asking you, what is the outcomes that you're looking for based on what the public wants? And how is that money attached, the money you're asking for, attached to those outcomes? I mean, that's what budgeting for outcomes is. So my question is really a question. Does that mean you won't be able to answer that this year?
No, I think we can.
You can answer, okay, because I know now that as we're doing planning for the budget, just like with IT, we still don't have a plan, and we're going to be asked to approve a budget, and it may be the same for police, it may, I don't know. So you will have a plan based on what the constituencies say they need for the outcomes that you're asking us to give money for?
Yes.
Okay, you heard this on record, folks. Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Blythe. That's great. I'm glad you're doing that. And so your consultant knows this, that she or he has a deadline? Okay, thanks.
Thank you, councilperson. I have an unusual idea. Why didn't the council submit a BFO proposal for paving money? Punch a button.
So
I
the
know you're
deal,
going to tell me we can't.
the deal is, the city operates on a budget that we approve, and we're not potted plants. We're supposed to know what it is that across the board the city needs. It's the checks and balances. It's that we don't see, every year we seem surprised we haven't done our work to balance administrative stuff, and that's what the checks and balance system is. So you're absolutely right. Council has every right. The process is starts next Monday, and you all or we should be putting forth what we think should be in the what outcomes we're looking for, not telling folks how to act, but the outcomes we're looking for. And we have yet to do that. How would you like us to proceed to make that happen, either Mr. Chair or Mr. Chair?
Well, without the plan, it would, BFO would be a little bit awkward, but I will tell you, I know we need $6 to $10 million in that budget next year for paving. And what that looks like and what transportation spends that on, I will trust that by then he will have a plan, maybe a tiered plan at that, that will show him what to spend that $6 to $10 million on.
So you want it to come from him without any input from us? I mean, I don't care what you want to do, but we ought to be working on our part of the budget, or our duties relative to the budget right now.
Yes, I agree. And what I would foresee is, and transportation already asked us for this, is our roads that we feel are the worst in our districts that need to be prioritized first. And I'd like to say second and third, but usually we're still at first when we run out of money. So, but I would foresee that process continuing. I guess I'm just firing shots across the bow about what we're going to.
You're absolutely right, sir, and I would welcome it. And I guess I feel like I've been beating a dead horse. We need to be
We all
more
do.
active before May. I leave it to the chair or the rest of you to decide. I'm only one member. But I think we should be more active, proactive, and it should be starting now, the same time the city is starting, or administration is starting theirs. So that it is not an argument, a checks and balance, so that we don't seem to look like deer in the headlights when it comes May and we're not sure what we're doing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
If I may say, you are a very good member of this group. Thank you. Not enough torture?
Thank you, sir.
All right, good deal. We trust you're going to get it done for us, buddy. Thank you. Mr. Holland, can we go over the two resolutions first, and then you can launch into your presentation?
Yes, sir. I'll ask Adrian for sake of time to go ahead and launch that, but he's got it up there. Yes, sir.
Okay, we're going to start with the resolution today, 7B, please.
A resolution authorizing the approval of change order number 3 for CH2M Hill Engineers, Inc., relative to contract number W15002-101 Friars Branch South Chickamauga Creek 5 Interceptor Rehabilitation for additional professional services in the amount of $40,000 for revised contract amount of $1,037,690.
I see no lights, so we'll move to next week's Resolution 7C.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to enter into an interlocal agreement with WWTA entitled the Environment and Economic Infrastructure Improvements, and I believe this is E squared, I squared, for mutual beneficial cooperation to reduce the scope and cost of the projects.
Is this what your presentation is about?
It is, sir. Yes.
All right, I see no questions, so why don't you educate us?
Thank you. First, thanks for, and this is E2, I2, so this is an environmental and economic infrastructure improvement plan. And so like good creative engineering staff, we came up with E2, I2 so that we could refer to this internally a number of times. I do want to thank the council for allowing us to present this information again. This is similar information from what presentation that occurred in April. I'll rewind a little bit. In April, we were in conversation with the council and this body about this exact plan. We had not worked out many of the details. We were simply coming to the council body to answer questions about what a project that is a collaborative effort with one of our regional customers, the WWTA. And I do want to point out, we've got several folks from the WWTA here. Mike Patrick, the executive director, Mike Moon, and several others representing their group. So this is an important project for our region, not just for the city of Chattanooga, not necessarily just for the WWTA. And we have worked tirelessly really with our WWTA partners. We've developed a partnership that has fostered into developing solutions that are regional, not just isolated to city problems and WWTA problems or problems with our other regional customers. It's important to clarify that this is not related to at all to conversations about a merger or consolidation of two agencies. This is simply a coordinated and collaborative partnership between the WWTA and the city. We have a number of contracts with the WWTA. We service the WWTA's service area to treat their wastewater, meaning that we receive that and treat it. So that's important that we outline something that happened a little bit later after we began this conversation about a coordinated effort. We came to you in April and discussed the outline of a project like this, hinged on a conversation that we would carry to the EPA with TDEC partnering with us and the WWTA partnering with us. As you all are aware, siting above ground infrastructure is difficult, and it makes sense for us to work together as a region to solve regional wastewater issues. We're all connected by toilets and sinks, and if pipes are connected, we're all connected, and it makes sense to connect to solve, I think, some of those problems. So today, we have a presentation that Jeff Rose, our director of the wastewater treatment plant and our wastewater system, is going to present to you. Again, it's some information that you've heard previously. We're going to dive into a bit more detail and allow time for questions.
Okay, thanks, Justin. Let's see, and I control the clicker here, is that correct? Or do I call on that? Okay, got it. Okay, so we'll go, yep, okay. So what we're going to talk about today is what is E2I2, goals and benefits. We want to show you the video we have. Most of y'all have seen that already, the animation as to what happens in these EQ storage facilities, some maps that describe the system and what we're doing, and then a summary at the end.
So what is E2I2? As we were trying to think of a name, we thought, well, it's an environmental, we're working on environmental problems and also economic things that can help us in the future to keep infrastructure in place for job creation, that kind of thing, for new homes and those kind of things. So environmental and economic infrastructure improvements. So what this is mutually beneficial collaboration between the city of Chattanooga and WWTA to reduce the scope and cost of projects. This allows the two organizations to quickly and effectively reduce sewer system overflows, SSOs, to meet consent decree schedule requirements. And what you're seeing here is a map that shows, you can see down in the legend there, our interceptor lines are the lines in the middle that sort of snake around a little. And those are restricted wet weather capacity interceptor sewers. The red areas, the one to the right indicates Lee Highway area, Ooltewah type area. The one at the bottom is East Ridge area. And then the one up at the left is Red Bank and Signal Mountain areas. And these are areas outside the city that are also restricted in how much sewer they can give to us because our lines are full during wet weather. Now, when we go to build these tanks, I'm not supposed to call them that, sorry, EQ stations, here's what happens. You can see we're going to put the structures at the downstream end of some of these. You see one there next to where it says Silverdale. That's on Lee Highway. And we'll show you that a little closer here in a minute. Then there's one in East Ridge, the little blue structure, and then there's one over somewhere below Red Bank and Signal Mountain down toward the wastewater plant. And when we put those in, we immediately are able to contain more of the wet weather flow. We don't have near as many overflows, and these lines become unrestricted wet weather capacity. And also the areas around become unrestricted in that they can add more customers. So our goals and benefits for E2I2, create a model for collaboration. We begin to just work with WWTA and other partners if we can to collaborate on solving regional issues. Reducing and eliminate SSOs more efficiently with joint projects. If we have to do separate projects, things just take a lot longer, and we do more projects, which is the next point, reduce capital and operating costs through partnerships. There's facilities we can share. We can share EQ stations, the structures themselves. We can share pump stations. We can share piping, and that's what reduces the capital cost and operating costs. Remove barriers, potential barriers to adding customers. Those restricted lines we talked about are places where inside the city we have to use our credits, our banked credits from rehab we've done before. When we do some of these projects, it will help us, what we're looking for is cooperation from EPA to then say, okay, you don't have to use that credit system anymore for up to 5 years. And that's some details of the plan. But the last part of it is cooperating with EPA and regional customers to resolve our problems, regional problems, and also get some relief on our specific city problems at the same time. Oops, I went past the video. There it is. So we're going to play this video. Some of you have seen this animation. Let's see. Oh, he cues it. Okay. So under normal conditions, we'll start at the beginning. Okay. So we're going to show you the Ham Road area since it's in place, area focus right downtown. And we'll zoom in and show some of the large sewer lines. And these are what gets full, some of the combined sewers downtown and smaller lines that also connect in. And we have some serious sewer overflow locations there during heavy rainfall events. As you can see, up to 40 million gallons a day. And the Ham Road location is critical junction of the majority of the city's wastewater pipes. And SSOs that happen are a threat to public health, the environment, and the city's economic growth. So the locally affected area here is right there at the river where these occur, and we zoom in to a little animation and show you that's Cameron Hill area and some of the new condos there. And what happens in a typical house under normal conditions, wastewater flows from buildings go into the sewer, rainwater flows into the combined sewer system. Here it happens to be combined. So normal conditions, the water is contained in the pipes. Abnormal conditions, however, the excess stormwater flows into the combined system through various places, roof drain connections, just broken lines, broken laterals, faulty lateral connections, cracked pipes, deteriorated manhole sections, and the sewers begin to fill up and back up to the point of overflowing at the east bank and the west bank. That's the east bank there. And then at the west bank overflow location also. Those are the major points for our consent decree. And in order to solve this, we're building right now, as you know, the EQ stations up at Ham Road. And so the excess flow enters the station through a pump station, and then during gradually released back into the system when there's capacity to handle it, usually within 24, 36 hours. So the flow is equalized, SSOs stop, and the SSOs go away, like that. So that's a really good summary. It's a really nice animation, and we haven't found anyone like that anywhere except for what we've done here with Jacobs. So next, just to show, this is our regional sewer area showing all of our regional customers, and the red dots are connection points, and the place where these EQ stations will be, 1, Lee Highway area, B, East Ridge area, area C is Red Bank area. And just a quick, this slide has a lot of information, and some of you may have seen it before, but just put it up there to show the location. Right now, City of Collegedale connects to the City of Chattanooga. Lee Highway, Ooltewah area flows through Collegedale. In the future, we will have, Lee Highway has its own connection to City of Collegedale, then will have its own connection. We flow down to this Lee Highway equalization station that we're in partnership with WWTA. And that's the location of that one. It's there on Lee Highway. I don't remember the exact address, but it's next to Home Serve there, property that we own now. And then the East Ridge area, you can see our major flows are coming from Ringgold, the Chattanooga system itself, and also WWTA area, and our connections down in Georgia. So those come in now and overwhelm the system. And in the future, all of our flows, well, I did forget one thing. Let me show. We had some planned city EQ stations that we've talked to some of you about at various times. One is in Brown Acres, East Brainerd area. The other one was Brainerd YFD area. These were just areas that were the best areas to put it in when you look at the sewer lines and cost. But what we can do with this new plan is get rid of both of those and put it in this area in East Ridge, just south of 24. It's roughly across from Walmart there, and it's an area that's mostly floodplain and not particularly developable at this point. So that's the location there. The third area is Red Bank area, and you can see it's Chattanooga system, it's Red Bank connection into the Chattanooga system. Signal Mountain currently has their own wastewater plant that discharges to the river. It is you can see up there, one of the bullets, high priority for TDEC and EPA to have that flow go to the City of Chattanooga. And so in the future, and this is very schematic, meaning we've still got to figure out a lot of things in this area, like where this EQ station will go, how the pipes will go to put it in. But that's what part of this agreement is about, is coming up with exactly what works here, what's feasible for us to do, and what's feasible for WWTA, and what will serve the community best. So just a summary again of our benefits. This is the same slide we showed before, because the goals and benefits, that's what the summary is. It creates a model for collaboration, reduces and eliminates SSOs more efficiently with joint projects, reduces capital and operating costs through partnerships, remove potential barriers to adding customers, and cooperative projects with EPA and regional customers to resolve regional problems. And that's the end. You have any questions?
Yes, we do. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. So Jeff, will you tell us a little bit more about the, I think, misconception of what people think are inside of the equalization containers, facilities, whatnot, because it was a very strong topic in my household one evening, and it was very interesting to hear what even someone very close to me, like my wife, who hears me talk a lot about city stuff, what her perception was and what she had been hearing in the media and around the block and whatnot. Can you give us a little bit of clearer, if you will, definition of what's actually inside these containers?
Well, what's inside them, they are just a large storage basin. They're empty inside, basically. So what happens is when the, like we showed in the animation, the flow gets up out in the system, and we pump the water into the station so that it doesn't overflow on the ground or overflow out in the river or something. And it fills up with wastewater, which generally at that point is probably 80 to 90% rainwater, just because of how much flow is leaked in. Or at the combined system, all the storm water is running into the sewer system together. So it's filling up throughout the storm event, and then when it gets to where there's controls that allow the water to come back into the gravity system once it has capacity to accept that water. So instead of overflowing, it just flows back into the system. And what's inside the tank is basically air. I mean, there's no, when the water comes up, air is pushed out of the tank. It goes through an odor control system, which we have on all of will be on all these facilities. And, that'll be a pretty robust system. We're telling people we don't expect odors out of these things because that's what everybody tells us that they have. So going on the best knowledge we have, and people who are close by. But in order to do that, we want to make sure we treat the air coming out with odor control equipment. When the event is over, there could be some residue left in the bottom of that storage basin. And so we're planning on going in there with some kind of cleaning equipment. Possibly one of the things we're looking at is they call them water cannons, where they just shoot a long way. And we're going to clean them out and make sure there's not anything left in there that will smell. So the water will only be in there, 24 to 36 hours probably.
So these are, I think what I've heard out in the public is that these are full-time waste, and I'm going to quote that, end quote, waste storage tanks that are permanently holding waste.
Right.
What you're saying is that these are temporary holding containers that will be emptied out within a matter of days at the most,
Right.
but are not filled completely with waste, but they are a large percentage, I heard 80 or 90% of rainwater.
Right.
And that
That's
there will
correct.
be mechanisms in place to keep them sanitary, if you will, and not from being a nuisance to the surrounding community.
Right. That's correct.
That's the plan.
You said it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilperson Burrs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I love what you've changed them to equalization stations. I think that's great. Thank you very much. You guys have done a terrific job. I know that I've been able to work with you, and you've really listened to people and modified the original plan. So thank you very, very much. I also love the idea that there's collaboration with WWTA. I think that's also a terrific idea. So Thank you again for that very much. So as I understand it, the equalization stations will be behind HomeServe. You finally closed that deal? Great. Thank you again. So are you talking about one there, one in East Ridge, one in Red Bank, and then you're building two now around Ham Road? Is
We're
that
building-
correct?
We're building 3 at Ham Road.
Three at
right
Ham
now.
Road.
3 10-million-gallon storage stations, equalization stations. One at Lee Highway currently. There's actually a room we could put another one if we needed to, but we don't have a plan for that right now. We're the one, the East Ridge, the plan is for up to 3 because it's a large area there.
Okay,
And it's very
sure.
isolated.
Sure.
And then the Red Bank most likely will be one large one. Yeah.
Okay. So we had a bunch of rather contentious meetings in my district because we do have a lot of problems there. And I think I'm the most proud of is that you guys listened and you adapted to the needs of the people and didn't put anything else at risk. And I want to thank you for doing that. I really appreciate your professionalism. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
You okay? Okay. Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, sir. Justin, this is for Justin. You mentioned several times that this agreement would allow us to share capital, which would reduce cost and do some joint projects, which really sounds a lot like consolidation to me. So how, and you mentioned it earlier, how's our benefit analysis study coming of the consolidation of the two systems?
So we are right now, our consultant that we selected is currently looking at all of the entire scope that the council's asked us to investigate. We're doing that with the WWTA and our consultant. So we have those 3 entities working on the responses to your questions and essentially trying to develop some framework and to how that may work and looking at the opportunities and the benefits and the challenges for any type of consolidation or merger of the 2 agencies of the WWTA and the City of Chattanooga's wastewater plant or wastewater system specifically. So we are currently working on that. We'd be happy to, I'm not prepared today to give you a full update, but I'd be happy to do that at your pleasure.
Mr. Chair, I think that would be, since we've actually started the process, I'd like to get an update on that. When do we think?
I know they just met maybe yesterday, so I'd say we could get an update fairly quickly.
Like, can I work with the chairman on
Sure,
on a
absolutely.
date that would be appropriate? I need to consult with staff to have something that would be beneficial for you to hear.
Yeah.
So we'll work on the timing of that, and I'll work with the chairman to get a date set.
Is there any sense of how long you think it would be before the actual report would be complete?
So I
now
think we
that
do
you
have a
started?
deadline on the report to be complete, which is about 6 months. Does that sound accurate? So 6 months from the time that we started, so we're maybe a month or month and a half into the project. So that just to help you frame that up, maybe we come back to you in about 2 to 3 months when we have an update, or 2 to 3 months into it, so maybe another month or so. Let us work with the chairman if that would be okay with you.
That'd be great. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any more questions? Seeing none. Mr. Chair, is that it until 6 o'clock? It is. Well, then we are adjourned until 6 o'clock. What? Oh, yes. Well, that's the ad hoc committee for. Yeah, see you at 6 o'clock. Why do you always try to make things so